My name is Mary Wood. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Mary.
My sobriety date is July 1st, 1998. I am a member of the Came to Believe group in Rocky Mount, and I know some of you, and we cross each other's paths. It's good to see you. It's also good to see people I don't know, and if you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous, I just want to say welcome. I remember my very first AA meeting because I made such a fool out of myself. I don't remember anything that was said in terms of recovery, but I remember how kind people were. I remember how welcoming. People said things like, "You're in the right place, keep coming back," and I thought, God, how do they know? And it was obvious to everyone except for me. I didn't know. And so, but I did. I was really happy to have free coffee and cookies and to be around people that didn't hate my guts. You know, it was like, that was a new experience that I hadn't had in years. So in a general way, to let you know what I used to be like, what happened, and what I am like today. But have you ever wondered, like, why do we spend time doing that? And maybe not. Maybe you just are here for the coffee and the cookies like me. But on page 29, it gives some directions. I went to an assembly one year, and a woman named Elle was speaking. I think she was a treasurer at like the general service level, and we had somehow gotten her to speak at our North Carolina assembly. And she said, "Have you ever opened up the big book and read something new?" And that had happened to her, and she gave that to me that night, where she said, you know, when we tell our story, you know, all these years, she had read those directions and how it works, what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. But there are some other directions on page 29 in the chapter, There is a Solution. What a great title, There is a Solution. It says, each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives. And that's really my job tonight, is to let you know how I came into contact with a power that rescued me from a hopeless situation. That's really the only reason, I think. You know, I mean, I like coffee and cookies, but you know, why come out in the evening and you know, rainstorms or you know, crazy drivers tonight, right, Audrey? And you know, why do you do that? Well, you know, because what we find in here is hope. And I never had that before. So I was exposed to alcohol pretty much my whole life. I was, my dad liked to tell a story about how when the baby cries, you put whiskey on her gums and then you take the rest of the shot. And so I know that's true, and I know that I had the croup growing up, this horrible barking cough where your child can't breathe, and my mother would hold me in the shower. This is the 60s, and she would hold me in the shower until we were both pruny, and then she would pass me off to my dad, who would give each of us a hot toddy, and then we'd pass out in the recliner. And that's, you know, that was normal. Drinking was normal. My parents brown bagged it to the restaurant, and, you know, he's a judge, and there was even if you weren't a judge, nobody was going to stop you unless you were, really doing something wrong. And if you did, they would say, go home, be okay. It's not like today where they have machinery to gauge your alcohol level and stuff like that. And so we were a drinking family, but I didn't think of us as a drunk family. There was one person in the family who had a problem, Uncle Tom. And he was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And don't give any of these drinks to Uncle Tom because he has a problem. And you know that Uncle Tom was the only person in the room who was okay, because he was in Alcoholics Anonymous and he was sober, and he did know that, for him that drink was poison, and he was completely okay drinking Diet Pepsis while the rest of us sort of spun out of control. And anyway, so that was funny looking back on it, that the person in the family who had the problem was the person who said they had a problem, who was actually relieved from the bondage to alcohol that some of the rest of us were in or soon to be in. And so I was the little cocktail waitress at our New Year's Eve parties and birthday parties and things like that. And it was a fun family. My mom was sort of this Donna Reed person who cooked casseroles and made sure we all had salad and got to our lessons. And my dad, he was an attorney and then a judge, and he was kind of this good time Charlie guy who everybody in the community loved and still loves. He's 90. He still lives in the home that I was brought home to when I was 2 weeks old. I was adopted into this family. And for a long time, I thought that was really what was wrong with me, is that I'm adopted, I'm with the wrong people, they don't know how to love me, and I'm special, I'm different. My 6th grade teacher gave me a little certificate that said, "You are unique in all the world." And that little certificate stayed in my head, until I got to you. And you helped burn that out. I was different my whole life. I was some kind of a black sheep in my family. I have a brother who was he was adopted into our family, and to my knowledge, he never felt like this. He never felt different or awkward. I don't know, but I certainly did. I was different at school. I didn't fit into any of the cliques. I was sort of a wanderer until we got to high school, and there was a smoking section, and there were bottles, and then I found my people, and we were called freaks, and I finally belong. And there were people who like to use drugs, and that just seemed too risky to me because I might embarrass myself. I know how to drink, and I don't know how to do some of these other things, and I was so afraid of looking foolish. So that really probably saved my life. The fact that I was so worried about what you thought of me that I pretty much, I can't say I never tried something, but I never had a relationship with drugs the way I did with alcohol. My first drink that changed my life was when I was 13 years old. We had done a play at church, and it wasn't even like a Catholic or Episcopalian church. We were Presbyterians, but I guess we had some fallen Presbyterians or some progressive Presbyterians. I don't know what we were. And there were 2 punch bowls at the cast party, and my little boyfriend found out. He was 15, I was 13, because that's how I rolled. And he found out that one of the punch bowls was spiked. or maybe he helped with that. I don't know. And but all my drinks started coming from there, and it was magic. It was like Dorothy when she had, she's been in this back, country. Nobody likes you. You're kind of a pain. Existence, and it's all black and white and drab with, Uncle Henry and Auntie M is kind of, And then when she steps through the door, after everything's sort of whirled around, she steps through the door and it's all in color and it's weird. And that's what 13 was like with that drink. I was doing cartwheels on whoever's front lawn we were on, and I couldn't be a daily drinker from that moment, but I was a daily thinker. And I thought about that next drink, for 17 years. For 17 years, I needed a drink. And to be honest, I needed a drink long before that. It had never occurred to me that was the solution that I was looking for. But like, for instance, my 7-year birthday party, I guess 7 was a big deal to my mom. We had, or maybe it just wasn't an ice storm that year. My birthday got iced out a lot of years, this January birthday. And we were all sitting around she had decorated, we had this sort of party room basement. And, there's probably 24 kids and me, and I go missing at this birthday party. That's my birthday party. And she looks all over the house for me and can't find me anywhere until somehow she finds me in the closet of my bedroom. She slides the door over and finds this little train wreck hiding in the closet. And she says, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "They were looking at me. They were looking at me. That was it." And I just couldn't take it. I don't like being the star of attention, but I also am all I can think about. That sick world of self-centeredness that I, was just sort of walked right into that. And so anyway, I needed that drink that night and found it when I was 13. I thought that I was really a high-bottom alcoholic when I got here because I still had a driver's license. I had a college degree. I was married with 2 children. And, I didn't live under a bridge with a brown paper bag, and I wasn't, this divorced person with all this baggage, I thought. But by the time I got to you, I had had 4 children with 3 different people, and I'm pretty sure that my second child's father has no idea. He was an international student at my college, and that whole relationship was a blackout. And I placed 2 kids for adoption because I needed to drink. And I kept getting drunk, and I kept getting pregnant and couldn't figure out where these people were coming from. I didn't have any ability to really assess my life. I just was this victim of, actually it was the Vietnam War's fault. It was wrong with me. Want to know why I'm drinking? It was the Vietnam War, because my birth parents would have been together if it hadn't been for that war. And I would have grown up with the right people, and I would have had the right kind of love. I'm seeing some bewildered looks on my face. This is really the state between my ears for 17 or so years. I really felt like, if you had had my problems, if you had been misunderstood like me, And I thought I had had a really hard childhood until I got here and heard your stories. You know, what my hard childhood was a silver spoon in each hand, and just, you know, not as many hugs as I wish I had had. I guess that's really, that was my tough row to hoe. I found out in 2015, about 5 years after my mom had passed away, that she was a domestic violence survivor. And that maybe there were some things going on with her that I didn't know about. And that's why she wasn't as demonstrative with her feelings. I know she loved me. She was the person who, when my little boyfriend stood me up for prom, she was the person that held me in her arms. She was the person who held me in that shower when I couldn't breathe. She was good. And I just missed all that somehow. And I'm sorry I'm like this tonight. I haven't spoken a long time. But I found out after I got here that I had a really wonderful childhood. And I just didn't know what to do with it. And so I went to my girlfriend's 40th birthday party. I was 30 years old. She was turning 40, and party means more. It's 1998. It's February. And my two children that I raised, the two girls that I was blessed with, were home with their father. And I went to this little girls' weekend, you know, this Thelma and Louise weekend. And they hadn't seen me in a couple of years. We had pulled a geographical, you know, the real problem is Wilson. That's what was wrong. That's really what was wrong. We got to get out of this town. We got to get away from some of these bad memories. And we're going to move to the beach, lose weight, and fall in love again. And you know what happened. Nobody lost weight. And so we get to the beach, and I go, after a few weeks of being there, it's this girl's birthday party. And I bring a bottle, and then I see somebody else has a bottle that I've never seen one of those before. I need one of those. And then her husband is so nice, gracious host. He buys the table a bottle of wine. So I have some of that. All going, you know, I've got like 3 or 4 drinks going at the same time, which seems fine to me because it's a party. It's a party. You're going to have more at a party. And a miracle happened that night. I was knee walking drunk, falling down, and somebody said, "Let me drive you." And I think it was the first time in my life that I ever let somebody drive me, and that I didn't drive drunk that night. And I don't, you know, I thank God for that. So we get back to her home, and they are excited to get home and move the party forward. And I tried some things I'd never tried before. And I thought, you know, this is going to help me. I won't throw up from all of the drinking that I've done. It did not work out that way. I got sick all over this lady's brand new home, and then lied about it. And the next day I woke up, I felt like, you know, my throat was really raw. My head's pounding. I need to start drinking. And I said, man, that was really rough last night. For me it was. And they said, they looked like this. They're like deer in the headlights. They said, yeah. And I said, I'm just going to drink normal today. And they said, yeah. Just drink normal, Mary. And I meant my normal. And so I did my normal, which was fine with me. And I don't remember, you know, I don't remember a lot about that weekend. I I almost hurt myself and somebody else on a clothesline, and that other story is about all I can remember. But Sunday morning I remember vividly. Sunday morning coming down, right? And Sunday morning was when I needed to start drinking again, just like I did Saturday morning. But Sunday, at some point, I have to drive home. And I really don't want these girls to know that I'm a drunk driver. And, you know, I probably could have stayed. I don't know how long she would have put up with me. But I just needed to get home so that I could start drinking. And I started to cry because I hadn't really seen that in years. I remember thinking for the first time that I was alcoholic when I was 16. And I said the words. I said, I think I'm an alcoholic. And I knew intuitively that, you know, this isn't going to end well. It just sucks for me. I don't know why, but I knew intuitively that I wasn't going to be able to change that. And I really don't know how often, if at all, I thought about that fact between those years. I think the longer my drinking went on, the less that I knew that about myself until I didn't know. And but I knew something was wrong that morning, and somehow connected that with my drinking. And I said to nobody, because if you've done the things that I've done, you know, I grew up churched. I grew up with those good Presbyterians, kind of a Kiwanis type church, how to be swell. But I knew that if there is a God, and you've done some of the things that I've done, it doesn't look good. And, you know, with the help of a 4-year degree, I've really put that whole God idea aside. God is a myth that people have made to make them feel better about themselves. And it's just sort of a weak person's wishful thinking. That's what God is. And I can do what I do, and there are no consequences. And when I stop, when this stops, when I'm gone, there won't be any more noise in my head. There won't be anybody mad at me, and it'll just be over. That was my hope. That was all the hope I had, was that maybe when I'm gone, it'll just be off. And so I certainly didn't imagine that I was praying that Sunday morning in February of 1998. I said, if there's no beer in the fridge when I get home, I'll stop. And I drove 90 miles from Myrtle Beach to Topsail to where my family was, and he had drank all the beer. And I thought, oh my God, you don't know what you've just done to me. And I thought, well, you know what? I've stopped drinking before. You know, every time I get pregnant, I'm this, you know, good mother who puts a halt to all of the drinking and you know, get through that pregnancy as healthy as I can for this child. And that's what I thought about myself until I'd been here for a while and my head cleared. And I thought about all that time that, you know, I was drinking that O'Doul's, what is that, 12% O'Doul's or whatever it is. Think about all those times think about the time when you were in labor at the maternity home and somebody snuck a bottle in and you couldn't be more excited to start drinking while your child's in labor, going through that kind of stress and all that stuff that I had just push it under the rug because I'm the hero in my story. I'm this good person who just, you know, had some hard times and, you know, just some bad luck. That's, you know, that was the version of me that I like to think about. And I didn't think and couldn't really tolerate thinking about those hard parts about myself. And I just drank that stuff away. I tried to. And And so I stopped. I white-knuckled it. I don't recommend that. I'm a nurse today. Thankful to God that I got to be a nurse in sobriety. And I've detoxed a lot of people from alcohol and found out how dangerous that is. And it can kill you. And so, I survived that detox on my couch with my Afghan. And then a few days or so in, that is all a real blur. I had miracle number 2. Stopping wasn't a miracle. I've stopped. Most of us have stopped. Got to stop. I've got this job interview or this circumstance or this, health problem, and I could pull it together for, at that point in my life, I could pull it together for so many days or weeks or months for a good enough reason. But staying stopped, right? That's a whole different level. And staying stopped for whom? There isn't any baby. There isn't anybody you love that you got to worry about. It's just me. And I don't like me. And so it was a miracle. I said these words I hadn't said since probably I was about 3 years old. I said, I think I need help. To nobody. I'm not saying that to anybody. I don't have anybody like that. And he doesn't like me anymore, and they're 4 and 5 years old playing Barbies. So I said to nobody, I think I need help. And there was a telephone book. I think most of you are old enough to remember those. There was a telephone book on a bookshelf where I found the number for Alcoholics Anonymous. And there was a woman in Wilmington, a sober alcoholic woman, who, for reasons obscure to me at the time, was volunteering at a telephone, just waiting for somebody like me to call in and be able to give some good, orderly direction. And she directed me to my very first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous was at Topsail Presbyterian Church in Hampstead, North Carolina. And I was probably a week or so dry, which is a really bad feeling. And I walked into there. I had no idea what to expect. I found this group of people sitting around some board meeting tables. And there was the president of Alcoholics Anonymous is at the end of the table running the board meeting. And they can't know why I have crashed their board meeting. They're reading something about steps, but they're not, these people are a little bit inconsiderate that they haven't handed out the handouts to me so that I could follow along. I don't know what they're talking about. And I'm smart. I've been to college. I know things. And so, it's got to be them. And so anyway, at some point I realized these poor folks don't know why I'm here. And I stand up in their AA meeting and tell my story. And they do what you just did. They laughed. And I had this look of horror on my face because I've just told this really sad story. And they're laughing, which is what we do in AA. We laugh at all the horrible stuff and we cry at the good stuff. But I don't, this is my very first time, and I look horrified that especially these 3 sweet old women who should have been nice to me, and this woman recognizes the look on my face, and she said, "That's okay, honey, you're just telling our story." And I've just, mind blown. I don't know what this place is, but as I said before, there's free coffee and free cookies, and they're really nice. And they say, "Keep coming back." And so I do that. This little lady named Betty, who looks like George Burns, and always has a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. becomes my first sponsor and directs me to pray. She says, you need to pray for sobriety. And I said, Betty, I don't believe in God. And she said, I didn't ask you that. If you want what we have, you need to do what we did. And I thought, oh, she don't want to hear my thoughts about how jacked up theology is and what I think of, the Bible Belt and all of this stuff. She didn't. She would not put up with it. She was hardcore. And she told me what to pray. She said, when you get up in the morning, pray, God, please keep me sober. And at the end of the day, when you haven't taken a drink, she said, pray, God, thank you for keeping me sober. And looking through those Coke bottle glasses, right? And so I did the very best I could. I said, God, if you're real, if you're there, please keep me sober. God, if you're real, if you're there, thank you for keeping me sober. And I prayed that I couldn't do one day at a time. These people talking about one day at a time and 24 hours and all that stuff in here. As smart as I was, it turned out, I was shaking and baking. And I had to pray like every 15 minutes, every half hour. I would make it like, okay, I'll make a decision. It's 20 minutes, 15 minutes till 8 o'clock. I'm gonna pray, God, please keep me sober until 8 o'clock, and then we'll see. And I'll make another decision at 8. We'll see what happens. And so at 8 o'clock, I would make a decision at 9 o'clock and on like that. And a weird thing happened. One day, like a couple of weeks in, I realized this is happening for me. I'm praying, but I don't have to pray every 15 minutes like this. I'm breathing. I'm not drinking. I'm starting to feel okay not drinking. I mean, I don't feel okay, but it's not DEFCON 5 anymore. Or DEFCON 1, whichever one it is. Like it's somewhere, I think I'm a 3, I think I'm going to be okay. And I planned my life around the meetings. The meeting felt like a lifeline because you were here. And I got to be around you, and I saw you sitting around eating donuts, eating cookies, drinking coffee, kick back, laughing. And I thought, God, how are they doing that? And somebody said, work the steps or die. And I thought, ooh, that sounds serious. And there were people who, they pointed out to me, there were people who, they were 2-steppers, 3-steppers or whatever they were. And they were here and they felt spiritual and then they left. And where are they? We don't know. And I thought, I don't want that to happen to me because I don't have any other friends. Like, I don't have anybody else to go to. My parents aren't talking to me. My family's not talking to me. Nobody likes me except for you. And you said, work the steps. So my step 2 happened right here with you. I didn't journal anything. I didn't have a workbook. It was when somebody said something horrible to me. They said, at the meeting, they said, you are not so special that this won't work for you too. And I thought, oh my gosh, she said I'm not special. And, there was this part of me, though, who was relieved that, gosh, this could happen for me too. I could be one of these people sitting around eating donuts or just kicked back, with not about to fly off the planet and just enjoy the meeting. I could be one of these people too. And my step 3 was trusting that you knew more than I did. That's really as far as I didn't have to take it any far. You know more than I do about staying sober, and I'm just going to do what you do. And people said things like good, orderly direction. And I've heard this one, gift of desperation, G-O-D. And so, and I am grateful today. You know, you go to the AA meeting and somebody says, I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. And you think, oh no. But, you know, because I felt like I'd been given a cancer diagnosis when I got here. You have alcoholism, and it's a fatal malady, and you have to be with us unless you want to die. That's really what I heard, and I thought, oh no, I don't even like, you know, at first I was like, everybody here is an old man named Bill, Bob, or John. Like, I'm never going to make it, you know, and Betty. And one-armed Carl. Like, there were so many cool people, it turned out. Like, you know, once you stick around, you realize that, you know, and even Crazy John turned out to be somebody that, you know, I wanted good things for. You know, we're not best friends. We're not going to hang out and, you know, go shopping together or anything like that. But I love you, and I want you to be sober, and I want you to be here for me while I get sober. And so it was a wild ride, and I thought, well, I don't have anything else to do really, except, you know, like cook meals and clean the house and stuff. So I was really happy to come to the AA meeting, and you know, one of those little girls is here tonight, and she was 5 years old when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. In February, which, as you know, is not my sobriety date, I did have an aversion to sobriety, and I hated the feeling of being dry without the steps, and tried to get high a couple of times to feel better, and somebody finally helped me to understand, you know, that's not really sobriety when you're trying to get high on pain pills that don't belong to you. So, so I did change my sobriety date to July 1st of 98. But anyway, this little girl, I felt so guilty. I've got to go to, you know, today I understand I get to go to AA. I'm privileged and graced to have ever made it through those doors and be one of the ones who wants it. That magic, you know, that so many people, for whatever reason, they don't want it. You know, they're here for a little while. The coffee, maybe they don't like the coffee. I don't know, that AA coffee. These are not my favorite cookies. I just hear the same things over and over again, and then they're gone. But the magic happened, and I get to be here. But at the time, I felt really guilty leaving these little girls. And so I said, alcohol makes me sick, and the meetings help me to feel better, is how I tried to explain that to my kindergartner. And she said, do you mean vodka? What's been going on here? And so I have a few stories that I love with her. And so fast forward into my sobriety, and we were all going to be going to eat pizza at Max's Pizza. Do you remember in Surf City, Max's Pizza? Oh, I can't wait. You know, it was a big treat because we were so broke. And I said, but I had a job cleaning. I cleaned the church where our AA meetings were. And I said, we can't go to Max's until I finish this, and I would like your help if you would help me. We just need to clean the windows and wipe this and this down, and then we're going to go. First things first. You know, I had to bring that into my family. First things first, because AA is not just something that happens when I'm here. It's something that happens in my life. It's who I am. I am AA, right? And thank you for that. And, you know, because I would never have gotten that by myself, but good, orderly direction, right? And so we get out of the car, and this little boy who's going to be my stepson, poster child for ADHD, the car pulls up, and he jumps out of the car, and before the rest of us have unbuckled our seatbelts, he's at the door, and turns around in a panic, and he says, "It's locked." And Hannah steps out of the car and says, "That's okay. My mom has a key because she's an alcoholic." And in her 7-year-old mind, an alcoholic is someone who goes to AA. I mean, that's a miracle, right? And then maybe a year or two later, I guess I'm sort of wearing my inventory on my shoulder, might be a podium appropriate way to say. I was not in as spiritually fit as, I sometimes wish I were. And, your kids, right? They zero in on that right away. And this little 9-year-old says, "Are you going to a meeting tonight?" And I would never forget that because, today I want to be the person who doesn't need a meeting to help me to feel spiritual. Today, there are things that I have incorporated into my life that upon awakening, right? We put some things in place in our life in conscious contact with our higher power, spiritual readings that help us to get in tune with God's will and help me to be right-sized and things like that. But, boy, at this point in my life, I was, I guess I needed a meeting. And my 9-year-old knew it. And she knew that AA is a place that helps my mom. And if that's all she knew, I'm grateful for that. AA does help me. It's a great place to grow up. I went through puberty twice, once in my teens and once in my 30s. And I was terrified to do an inventory. I didn't have to do that alone. Somebody fired up a coffee pot, and there were a couple of us who wrote, scratched out kind of a sorry halfway inventory first attempt. And I've been able to go from there. And, it's so funny. I want to tell you this story. I chose a different person for to hear my fifth step, and I can't even really tell you why I picked this woman, but she had something that was attractive, and so I said, I'm really scared. I was really, filled just like, I don't know anybody who doesn't come to this program with guilt, shame, and remorse. And I drank over that stuff for years. And I had written as best I could, and now I got to talk to somebody about this stuff, which is really a different experience than all of the drunk dialing that I used to do, right? I'm going to sit at a table sober and talk to this woman about the things that I've done. And I want you to know that God put on this barrier island off the coast of North Carolina a woman who, with 10 years of sobriety, who was also a birth mother, had placed her daughter for adoption. And can that just happen? Can that just be a coincidence? And it just, little by little, hearing you share about a loving God, having these God experiences, I began to realize, I came to believe this is real. There's somebody's hearing my prayers. And my life took off. And I was talking to Audrey about, the very first time somebody says, we want you to get up here and tell your story. And I thought, oh, no, I don't sound like one of those people. I can't do that. And they said, well, have you been sober this year? And I thought they were saying, maybe you haven't been sober this year. I was one of those people who used to wait to open my can of Pepsi until I got to the meeting so that you would know I hadn't spiked it. I was that person. And they said, have you been sober this year? And I said, yes. He said, are you grateful? And I said, Yeah, yes, I'm grateful. He said, well, yeah, get out there and tell that story. And, over and over again, I've been asked to do some things in Alcoholics Anonymous, to help build a website, to keep the books, to be the holder of the key, to be the person that takes out the garbage, all the things that facilitate us carrying the message to an alcoholic, all of the things that help somebody, just like me, who may be walking in and terrified and has no idea. Like, I know things are messed up. I can't imagine life without a drink, but maybe there's something here. And I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to walk through this door and get to experience hope, right? All those little things that somebody bought the coffee and the cookies, somebody cleans out the pot at the end of the night, all those things, somebody arranges the chairs, all of the things that happen. And we don't do it, right? Because I'm the chairperson, or I get to be the GSR. Actually, it turns out nobody wants those jobs, but but we do that. Why we do that? Because we're grateful, right? We're so grateful for this gift, and I am so grateful for the gift of sobriety that I have been so graciously given by you and people like you, our forefathers, and I thank you so much, Megan. I have loved watching your transformation to the opening of a flower, really, and so grateful for your love and friendship and kindness to ask me to be here tonight, and for you listening to me. Thank you so much.